The Vatican has elected the first American Pope. Pope Francis passed away on Easter. A monumental story. Yet Voice of America and Radio Free Europe remained silent, because Trump cut them off. The U.S. President's decision to shut down Voice of America and Radio Free, an unprecedented move, has gone largely unexamined for nearly 2 months. But now the situation is spiraling. This is no longer a niche issue, it's a headline crisis. Trump is dismantling every public media outlet. 3 key questions. What is happening? What are Trump's reasons and motives? How will this reshape American media, society, and the world? Let's find out. May 3rd is World Press Freedom Day. On that very day, a U.S. federal appeals court blocked the reinstatement of Voice of America, VOA. The day before, Friday, Trump had signed an order to terminate funding for public broadcasting. 3 days later, on May 6, VOA was to start airing pro-Trump party content in place of normal international news. To strike on Press Freedom Day was no coincidence. For the United States, shouldn't press freedom be a founding principle? But things don't work the way they should, especially in Trump's second term. Judges he appointed during his first are now showing their hand. Why wasn't this front-page news? Because few even noticed, and fewer cared. VOA and Radio Free Europe/Asia are foreign-facing. Authoritarian regimes label them enemy stations. Most Americans have never heard of them. The story is still unfolding. Here's how it's gone so far. March 14, 2025, Friday night. Trump orders dissolving the U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAM, ending operations of VOA and more. March 15, Saturday. All 1,300 VOA staff are placed on indefinite leave, 600 contractors are fired. Offices locked. Programming halted. First time since 1942 that VOA fully goes dark. Analysts warn the U.S. is losing its voice in the global information war. Trump's public broadcasting czaress Kari Lake, former TV anchor and Trump loyalist, announces that VOA is terminating all contracts with AP, Reuters, and AFP, ending collaboration with international news agencies. March 21, Trump administration is sued for violating press freedom and congressional authority. April 22, federal judge Royce Lamberth issues an injunction, ordering reinstatement of staff, restoration of VOA programming, and $15 million in funding to Radio Free. May 2, another Friday. Trump issues a second order, this time cutting all funding to PBS and NPR. May 3, a federal appeals court rules 2-1 that Judge Lamberth lacked authority to reinstate staff or funding. But the ruling does not overturn Lamberth's order that VOA continue airing mandatory programming. Trump's lawyers never even challenged Lamberth's injunction. They simply waited for their own judges to weigh in. The real show is just beginning. May 7, Tuesday night. Kari Lake abruptly announces, overseas VOA content will now be produced exclusively by One America News Network, OAN, a far-right, pro-Trump media outlet. Handing VOA's international broadcasting to OAN is a profound violation. VOA is publicly funded, its charter mandates reliable and authoritative news. It cannot outsource content to a president's partisan media arm. OAN backed the January 6th insurrection and the 2020 election conspiracy theories. It has faced, and settled, multiple defamation lawsuits. Under Trumpist logic, federal media must serve the federal executive. Public broadcasting must follow the president. Whoever wins the presidency should control the airwaves. It sounds sensible, until you think for 2 seconds. If the president can control broadcasting, should they also control mail delivery? Should NASA launch rockets on party orders? Should the military, science agencies, transportation, medicine, law enforcement, weather services, all follow party command? If the president can bypass Congress, reshape public media, purge staff, seize funding, and dictate content, what's left of separation of powers? Of press independence? You tell me. The core question is public broadcasting a tool of White House propaganda, or an independent news institution? To answer that, we first need to understand the origins, purpose, and current function of public broadcasting. First, the U.S. federal government has no Ministry of Propaganda, nor a state-run media directly under the White House. The White House does have a press secretary's office, a public relations body for the presidency. The State Department has an Office of Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. So does the U.S. government have state media? The answer is yes and no. External-facing broadcasters like Voice of America, VOA, Radio Free Europe, RFE, Radio Free Asia, RFA, and domestic institutions like National Public Radio, NPR, and the Public Broadcasting Service, PBS, all receive federal funding and are therefore often viewed as U.S. state media. These institutions are now under assault, justified as cost-cutting, but in reality, part of political warfare. Their origins, mission, and growth are all tied to war, the Cold War, and nation building. VOA is the most iconic example. International broadcasting began in 1941 during World War II. At the time, Nazi Germany, Japan, the UK, and the USSR all had global radio services. VOA began full operations in 1942, targeting Axis countries like Germany, Italy, and Japan, broadcasting anti-fascist news and democratic ideals, wartime counter-propaganda an important part of the global war operation. In the 1940s and 50s, VOA expanded its content and languages. During the Cold War, it served as the front line of ideological confrontation with the Soviet bloc. In the 1980s and 90s, VOA adopted satellite broadcasting and internet platforms, moving beyond shortwave radio. In the 21st century, VOA expanded to social media, with programming in over 40 languages. Over decades, labeled a hostile foreign station by authoritarian governments, VOA operated under a charter of editorial independence to provide accurate, objective news, particularly impactful in places where information is tightly controlled. In 1996, after the Cold War, the U.S. launched RFE/RL and RFA to reach specific regions. These were legally registered as independent nonprofit media organizations. Although funded by Congress, they are legally required to maintain editorial independence. In 1999, the U.S. established the Broadcasting Board of Governors, BBG, which was restructured in 2018 as the U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAM. Funded by Congress and overseen by the federal government, USAM manages VOA and others. Here's the question: are these really independent media? Say, no, these are funded by the government. But yes, is also valid. They are legally independent entities, with autonomous editorial control, not state mouthpieces like those in authoritarian regimes. Under the 1948 Smith-Mundt Act and the 1976 VOA Charter, VOA is legally obligated to provide fair, accurate, and comprehensive reporting. It may not be used as a tool for political propaganda. Yes, VOA promotes American interests, but it operates as a news organization, fundamentally distinct from Nazi Germany's propaganda ministry or the Soviet TASS agency. VOA is subject to legal and journalistic standards, prohibited from spreading false or harmful information, and explicitly forbidden from serving as a partisan tool. This emphasis on editorial independence isn't just about ethics or journalistic integrity, it's a firewall against becoming party media, a safeguard against weaponization in partisan battles or administration successions. VOA and its peers openly report on American social issues, poverty, racial inequality, policy failures, political strife, and more. That's the external broadcasting picture. What about domestic public media? Stay tuned for the next episode, Why Trump Wants to Gut Public Broadcasting. I'm Feng Ming. See you next time.